Buenos dias, everybody. Great and beautiful morning. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone is having a great morning, drinking their coffee or orange juice or water. Hope you guys don't be drinking that monster stuff. That stuff is nasty. Got a lot of sugar. But anyways, so yeah, hopefully everybody had a great weekend and didn't get into too much trouble. But anyways, all right. So we've been covering the last recent videos, the beasts of Daniel and Revelation, who they are, who they're not. I am recently in the process, and this is no joke, I've already been making all my notes as far as this 1260 year or 1260 day, 1260 year prophecy that is mentioned about, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 11 times. I can't remember, but it's mentioned in there more than a few times. Now, a discrepancy, not the discrepancy per se to disprove Ellen G. White's teachings, but a discrepancy in it is that they're mentioning those 1260 days to be actual 1260 years. Okay, I'm not going to say yay or nay, but think about this. Like I said, a discrepancy. If it was 1,260 years, then that would actually mean that the two witnesses are actually prophesying for 1,260 years, because that is what the King James says, that they would prophesy for 1260 years or days. Well, if it says days, then we have to think of years because of Ellen G. White, and as well as I think Herbert Armstrong as well. And I'm going over through his booklet as well on the Roman Empire on those points as we speak. But anyways, like I said, I would do my best to get all my notes together and bring you that information. But this times and the dividing of time all has to do with Daniel 9 about the covenant with many, the covenant, the 7, it's a week, the 7 days or 7 years. So when that midst was cut off per se, it was because, as was prophesied in the book of Daniel as well, was that he will confirm a covenant with many. Many in the scriptures, if you look it up in the Hebrew concordance, means Rabim with an M or Rabin with an N. Okay, and I don't know if y'all seen, there's videos, I haven't even looked them up, but there's information out there that show that the Yitzhak Rabin was actually mentioned in the Bible and was assassinated. Okay, so when he and Yasser Arafat were assassinated, then that put an end, or shut down that peace policy that they had going on between, Yasser Arafat's people and, of course, the Jews, Palestine, Israel, whatever. So that put an end in the midst, cut off that peace treaty. But like I said, I have to get all my notes together. Oh, so obviously a time was 3.5 years. Times was 3.5 years plus 3.5 years, making it 7 years, and then go from there. But that's gonna take me a while. But I do want to finish this booklet. We're almost done with it. Hopefully you guys are catching on. Hopefully you guys are taking notes, because like I said, there is a lot of deception going on out there, and if we don't prove these things for ourselves, then we can believe anything. Okay, so all right, our next section is called the likeness of the beast, or Second Babylon. Oh man, got more back pains. We got more rain coming tonight and or tomorrow morning for the next couple of days, so no walking for me. It's already 8 o'clock, so might as well get this show on the road. All right. Well, what started as a discourse about a city John the Revelator saw in a vision. Excuse me. John was shown a prophecy for the last days. It is a prophecy that will involve the whole world, but in this vision, John saw a certain city described as Mystery Babylon the Great. Now we must remember when it says that a name was written on her forehead, a name. So mystery is not a word in this case; it is a name, and I give it to y'all as Mysterion, something like that. Okay. Like I said, y'all need to pay attention to these key words and phrases. It is a prophecy that will involve the whole world, but in this vision, John saw a certain city described as Mystery Babylon the Great. Notice in Revelation 18:2-4. Oh, bad. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen the second time, and is becoming the habitation of demons, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. It's not that John was just repeating himself, but he accounted for the first fall, the deadly wound of Babylon. Babylon is fallen the second time, so Babylon will fall the second time. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, and ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. John described the city as a city and as a harlot. Revelation 17:1, 5, and 18. And there came one of the seven Malachim, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. And upon her forehead was a name written. Again, there we go again. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. You know, I get up this morning, and I'm fine. I'm not really yawning at all. I'm not really getting heartburn until I start doing this. Get behind me, Satan. Leave me alone. In Revelation 18:10, it says, Standing afar off with the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. Many students of prophecy have confused the city of John, the city John saw, with the first original Babylon. This original city of Babylon was captured by the Persians under Cyrus the Great in 539 BCE. Later, Alexander the Great planned to make the original city of Babylon the capital of his Eastern Empire, but after his death, the original city Babylon gradually lost importance. This original city Babylon is not the city that John saw. From the New Funk and Wagnall's Encyclopedia, 1950, Volume 3, page 872, it tells us, although the Persian kings made Babylon their residence, nothing was done for the restoration of the city. Alexander the Great, who on his entrance in 331 BCE had promised the inhabitants to rebuild the ruined temple, was unable even to clear away the rubbish, although he employed 10,000 workmen for 2 months. After his death in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar and the foundation of Seleucus Nicator, it's crazy, Babylon went rapidly into decay. The Encyclopedia Britannica, 1910, Volume 3, page 6, says, the foundation of Seleucia in 312 BCE diverted the population of Babylon to the new capital of Babylonia, and the ruins of the old city became a quarry for the builders of the new seat of government. Literal Babylon was no longer a great city when Revelation was written at the end of the 1st century. The prophet Daniel prophesied the fall of the original city of Babylon. The prophet Daniel prophesied the fall of the original Babylon, of the original city Babylon, in Daniel 1:1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. Okay, then, okay, this is a long section. Y'all can read Daniel 7:17 through 30. Daniel, all these darn typos. Daniel 5:17. Yeah, it's Daniel 5:17 through 31. That is a section you can read about all this. All right. He's prophesying and telling them what the writing on the wall meant in this whole section. Yahweh's prophecy given to Daniel was fulfilled exactly as Yahweh had said. Babylon was given to the Medes and the Persians. Since this Babylon had already fallen and has never been rebuilt, it could not possibly be the same city John saw in his vision for these last days. Cities are often referred to in a spiritual sense, bearing similarities to the original. Okay, so today we live in a modern day Babylon of all its idolatry, God worship, images, all this syncretism, all this mixture and confusion of all religions putting their ideas and their philosophies together. That's what we're living in right now, per se. Revelation 11:8 says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom in Egypt, where also our Savior was sacrificed." Not where he was sacrificed, but where also he was sacrificed. Okay, spiritually speaking, or figuratively speaking, we're living in a modern day Babylon. And just like about the mark of the beast, it's not a literal mark, it's a physical, it's a spiritual mark. How do we identify what city John saw in his vision? As John saw the original beast in Revelation 13:1 through 8, he saw also the likeness of the original beast rise up out of the earth. We have already proven this likeness to be the United States of America. Yes, we have. After John gives a full description of the first Babylon in Revelation 17:1 through 6, he then gives a full description of the second Babylon in Revelation 18. To identify the second Babylon, please follow the clues given by John in Revelation 18. John shows us a city like no other city on earth. In Revelation 18:1, John says, "And after these things," meaning after he saw the first Babylon, he goes to the second Babylon. In Revelation 18:2, we see Babylon falls twice. As the first Babylon was led by Satan's demons, so also the second Babylon has become the habitation of demon worship. And remember, I covered that little area where you could refer the word demon to daemon, D-A-I-M-O-N, which is the same thing as God. And Revelation 18:2, "And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon is fallen, and is become the habitation of demons, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird." Here's I was looking for this, or remembering where this might be. It says the Greek word translated bird, B-I-R-D, in the above verse, Revelation 18:2, is from the Hebrew word nakah, N-A-C-A-H, meaning to expiate sin. Compare the Greek and Hebrew meanings. To expiate means their sins must be expiated by sacrifice. Okay. The word 142 from Greek means to take, keep in suspense, to expiate sin. From the Hebrew, it means nasa, and it means accept, advance, arise bring forth, burn, carry, cast, contain, desire, ease, exact, exalt, extol, fetch, forgive, furnish, further give, go on, help, height, hold up, honorable man, lay, lift up, lofty, marry, magnify, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. Every unclean and hateful bird means to raise up sin, which is against the laws of Yahweh. And in this country, we have plenty of that. We we have been told for the longest time, and this is again just in kind of put it in small reference about people don't have to keep the laws anymore. So if we're not practicing the laws, then we are practicing sin. There's no other three ways about it. It says Revelation 18:5, for her sins have reached unto the heavens, and Yahweh has remembered her iniquities. That, I think I need to cover that little section. It's not really a whole lot, but it's about hoping that we don't have our sin accounted against us when the time comes. But I'll have to look into it. All nations have Babylon's teachings. This is a fact, because this is what Yahweh inspired to be written. Revelation 18:3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. The kings of the earth are practicing fornication, following after anything that is not of the laws of Yahweh in this city. The kings of the earth meet at the United Nations in Manhattan, New York, on land and in buildings donated by the powerful Rockefeller Foundation. Revelation 18:9-11 says, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Let's see here. There's that little word there, 1 hour. I read it a few scriptures back. Anyways, by these verses we know that the kings stand a long way off when the city is destroyed, showing they do not make the city their permanent dwelling place. They only meet there temporarily for trading purposes, neither are they in the city when it is destroyed by fire, an exact description of destruction by nuclear war. Obviously, they're standing afar off. We've seen that in the videos where they, as a matter of fact, I was watching one last night where they were detonating these bombs, and obviously you're not gonna stand just 100 yards. You gotta go way back. I know about 50,000 miles, I guess, or something. But notice in Revelation 18:18-19, it says, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. The merchants of the earth have become rich through this merchandising religion. Remember, each pagan religious holiday of this Babylonian system carries with it buying and selling of gifts, making the merchants who deal in this merchandise rich. Since World War I, the businessmen of New York's Wall Street have been the most powerful in all the world. Most of the major economic and financial decisions affecting the United States and most of the allied world have originated from some skyscraper at a boardroom meeting in Manhattan. Let me see something real quick.
Head northeast on South 5th Street toward...
No, never mind. Anyways, the description of the very existence of this power eliminates any city of the communist world. Business and commerce are not permitted to thrive in collective communist societies. Now we come to the section of the great city that became three parts. think I mentioned this in the last video or the last two videos. The great city, New York, is split into three major parts. Staten Island is one part, Manhattan Island and the Bronx compose the second part, Brooklyn and Queens comprise the third part. To better understand which Babylon is meant here, we have to see further description John gives in Revelation 16. Here, John is speaking of the vials the Malachim pour out on the earth in the last days. Vials is translated bowls in later translations. John also shows two Babylons here. The first Babylon was located on the great river Euphrates. It says here, Babylon strategically located on the Euphrates, accessible both to the Mediterranean and Egypt and to the Black Sea. Though the term is sometimes applied to the civilizations chiefly Sumerian of the 2000s BC, it generally refers to the Semitic penetration into Mesopotamia with the civilization founded by Sargon I and reaching its height under Hammurabi, who established Babylon as his capital. There you go. Revelation 16:12 through 14 shows the sixth vial or bowl is poured out on this great river, Euphrates, where the first Babylon was located. But Revelation 16:17 through 21 is the seventh vial and is to be poured out on the great city made up of three major parts. By reading the King James Version of the Bible, the reader is misled into thinking the great earthquake divided the great city into three parts, but this is not so. It says by reading Revelation 16:19 in its original Greek, we can see John was giving us a description of this great city, which had three major parts to its whole. It says, and was the city the great into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and Babylon the great, which remember before God, to give her the cup of the wine of her fornication, the wrath of the anger of himself. And the mountains were not found. Notice the word divided is not in the original Greek. What John said was the great city of three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and the whole of Babylon, all the world, came into remembrance before Yahweh. Revelation 16:20 says, and every island fled away. New York City is a multi-island city. The reader must be aware not to confuse this three-part city with the city which is the seat of the beast. In Revelation 17:9, the seat of the beast, the seat of the woman is built on 7 hills or mountains, that city that reigns over the kings of the earth. This latter description fits none other than Rome, which sits on 7 hills, as proven in chapter 8. The city made up of 3 parts, New York City, is the second Babylon. It is a part of the last beast which came up out of the earth and has 2 horns, 2 religious powers, Catholic and Protestants. Okay, now I was looking through my booklet from the Philadelphia Church of God, with whom the late Mr. Armstrong was overseer of, and they think that those 7 hills where Rome sits are actual, they're putting them to actual world powers, but that's not the case. And besides, even if they were, I have already given y'all, the 5 that were, 1 is, and 1 has yet to be. So I gave y'all the, it was Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, whatever. Okay. Let's see. Yes, people, these books are very, very informative. Okay. It says the State Seal of New York. The State Seal, adopted in 1882, carries the state arms. In the center of the seal is a shield depicting a Hudson River scene with sun, mountains, and 2 ships in sail. To the right of the shield stands justice, and to the left, liberty. At Liberty's foot is a royal crown, signifying Liberty's rejection of monarchical government. Above the shield is a globe supporting a bald eagle, the official U.S. emblem. On a banner below is the state motto, Excelsior, ever upward. There's nothing else quite like the city of New York. It's in a class by itself. London may be about the same size. Paris may be more elegant. Rio de Janeiro may have more magnificent surroundings. Yet New York probably has the best claim to be called the capital of the world. As many have said, New York has just about everything. And New York at one time was they have a building called the Empire State Building because U.S. is pretty much an empire, and New York might as well just be the seat of our trading, import, and export. Why is New York City a world center? Size alone entitles it to place among the leading cities of the earth. Tokyo, the world's largest metropolis, has more than 9 million residents. London in second place has a population of over 8 million. New York City's inhabitants numbers over 7 million. In 1960, but the population of New York City proper does not include all the people who live outside the city limits in New York State and across the river in New Jersey. People who come to the great city to work, if you include these suburban counties, the population of this bustling area is more than 10 million, 10.5. But New York has other claims to leadership apart from its large size. Here you will find the United Nations housed in its fine buildings on the East River. Wall Street is the financial capital of the world without doubt. As in the old days when all roads led to Rome or later to London, so today all roads lead to New York City. What is further proof that New York is the prophetic city? Water ports, mountains, music of harpers, and sorceries. How did the two Babylons use sorceries to undermine the society? As a commercial center, New York City is unsurpassed by any other city. There is not now, nor has there ever been another city like it. It is a clothing and fashion center to buyer and seller who are required to visit New York in their business dealings. World famous auction houses such as Christie's deal in rare gemstones and artwork on a daily basis. For one who wants to buy a slave, this city with its many pimps and prostitutes can easily accommodate. New York City has a reputation as a place where human lives can be purchased through illegal adoptions. In criminal society, New York City is a fine city to purchase an assassin to liquidate a human life. The three parts which New York City consists of are Staten Island, Manhattan, and the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. Collier's Encyclopedia, Volume 14, 1957, shows these parts. It says, if you will notice, Babylon, New York is located close to the borough of Queens. Well, I had to look it up, but in that circle is Babylon right there. Okay. The Egyptian obelisk known as Cleopatra's Needle stands in Central Park in New York City. I saw a video on that the other night, and they bore a hole on the side of the ship, on whatever that part is called, but they had that thing just, like literally and they brought it over here, and according to that video, it fell in the water. I can't remember how deep it was, but it fell, and then they pulled it out. Man, that's crazy. That one they brought from Egypt, supposedly. The Egyptian obelisk known as Cleopatra's Needle stands in Central Park in New York City. This obelisk is part of the Babylonian worship and was the Tower of Nimrod, which supposedly reached high to heaven to bring down the power of the god Baal, or Baal Zebub, lord of the heavenly habitation, to their worshippers. It reminded me of the prophecy of Jeremiah chapter 7 and 44 when they were talking about the Queen of Heaven and how they had everything when they were doing those services. So obviously people doing all their God worship in New York per se, that's why they're so... New York is the place to go for shopping. I think if I went to New York, which I plan on doing, is take pictures, and because I like to make my pictures into a video, and buy me a, I mean, you nowadays you can print a shirt that says "I love New York" and says "I've been to New York." See, but I would like to go to New York and buy something you can only buy in New York. But I don't think I want to be dressing in the New York fashion. Me, the way I dress up here in South Texas, I dress kicker. Cowboy hat, cowboy boots, jeans, starched up the wazoo. My shirt starched as well. I like to look good when I go out, but I don't think I want to be dressing. If I were to go with a buddy, man, hey bro, let's dress like freaking pimps or like cholos or like gangsters. Nah, that ain't me. Hell no. I mean, that's why I would literally stick out being in New York dressed as a and dressed in kicker. But anyways, how fitting for John is describing the city to say, "I sit as a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow." From Funk and Wagnall's Standard Reference Encyclopedia, Volume 18, 1959 through 60, page 6519, one can see a sky view of part of this great city. One can see it is both a major port and a huge city built on the seaside. As an example of the importance of this fact, Baltimore, Maryland, and London are major ports, but they are not located directly on the sea. Many other cities are located on the sea, but are not major ports. Revelation 18, 7 to 19, 7, Revelations 18, 17 through 19 says, "For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads, and cried weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich had all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate." I apologize, y'all. I'm still probably having the effects of my medication yesterday. I started cutting the grass, and um, of course, I mean, for the most part here, my mom's yard, it's all grass, no rocks, no toys from my nephew and my nieces. It's all over on that side. But like I told you, it rained so much. Man, the grass grew like almost about a foot or so, but mostly grass and weeds. But yeah, I shouldn't even be doing that, but it's got to get done. So then afterwards, well, no, let's see. No, just yesterday morning, I after my mom had gone to church, I took my meds because I wasn't really feeling that great. That was, yeah. So, anyways, all right. So yeah, I guess I'm still feeling the side effects of the medication. But anyways, all right. New York. George Washington, traveling with Governor George Clinton through New York, remarked that this new state might become the seat of empire. Whether the state's popular name came from this comment is not known, but for many years New York has been called the Empire State. The state richly deserves this title, although only 29th among the states in the area. New York State is first in population. It has nearly 15 million residents, about 10% of all the people in the US. Wow. It also ranks first among the states in manufacturing, construction, and wholesale and retail trade. Wow. New York is a very popular place, people. New York is predominantly an urban state, with about 4 out of 5 of all its residents living in cities and towns. New York City alone has nearly 8 million people, or about one half of the state's entire population. This city, together with the two Long Island counties of Nassau and Suffolk, and Westchester County to the city's north, have about two-thirds of all the people in the New York State. The population upstate is about 5,500,000. These people reside in cities and towns chiefly along or near the Hudson River and the route of the Erie Division of New York State Barge Canal. Those in rural areas cultivate farms located principally in river valleys or gently rolling country. For many years, New York City has been the chief gateway for immigrants entering the United States. As a result, New York State has much larger foreign-born population than any other state. Its older stock includes such names as Dutch Van Dutch Van Rensselaers, Roosevelt's, Schooliers, and Stuyvesants, German Astors, English Clintons, and Scottish Livingstons. Wow. Light of a candle. Yeah, so why is Trump trying to get all the people that are not from here away? Light of a candle from Revelation 18:23. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. Okay, pay attention to what this next section says. This one really caught my attention when I first read it. It says again, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. Revelation 18:23. Okay, older translations of the Bible, such as the King James Version, which was written before electricity was discovered, make this verse difficult to understand in the context John wrote it. The reader is reminded that John is speaking of a city here. It is a city bearing a distinctive light. John was using this light to identify the city to the reader hundreds of years later. Modern translations, such as the New International Version, Interlinear, Greek English New Testament by Zondervan Court, make this much clearer. It says, and the light of a lamp. Okay. Delos Island, where the Statue of Liberty stands, is where the light of a lamp shines. John specifically says, the light of a lamp shall shine no more in thee. Is there any city in all the world that holds up a lamp to incoming travelers? Okay, so I shall give y'all a heads up there. Ding, 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 ding. Alrighty. Next section, the mountains were not found. In Revelation 16:7-21, we read, and the seventh Malach poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, it is done. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city which has three parts, and and even if you read it, the city that became three parts, but you have to learn how to put that kind of stuff in context to eventually where New York was there empty, and eventually they divided into three parts, in other words. And the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came into remembrance before Yahweh to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed Yahweh because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceedingly great. Bye-bye, New York. Excuse me. John, when describing the destruction of the city, had never seen a skyscraper, so how else would John have described them? As a mountain. Okay. Next section here is called the music of harpers. After, let's see. After the music of harpers. After the destruction of the city befalls, Revelation 18:8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Yahweh our mighty one who judge her. He says, the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And Revelation 18:22. The New York Metropolitan Opera Company and the New York Philharmonic Orchestra are world renowned. But after the seventh vial, they will never be heard in the city again. Revelation 18:20-22. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for Yahweh has avenged you honor. And a mighty Malach or angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. Craftsmen of whatsoever craft is self-explanatory. New York City is a center of arts and crafts, from gem setting into fine paintings. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee, signifying the factories and heavy industry will not be heard again in this destroyed city. Revelation 18:23, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. The Greek word translated sorceries is 5331 in the Greek dictionary of Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, and means medication, pharmacy, sorcery, and witchcraft. So by sorceries are all nations deceived. Revelation 18:23 says, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Okay, and there is a meme that is floating around Facebook, but not just by anybody. Let's see if I can find it. Well, here's one of them. Witchcraft isn't always what you think it is. In fact, many people don't even know that. Pharmaceutical drugs is witchcraft. The word pharmacy comes from the Greek word pharmika or pharmika, which means magic, sorcery, and an enchantment. There it is, people. Y'all can look it up. Y'all can look up that verse, and you'll get those pictures like that. Medication is poison, people. That's why I tell you I don't like taking medication, but I do it anyways. Okay. So, reading on. Are not the merchant medical doctors considered as the great men of the earth? But as John knew, people are deceived into believing the medical doctors can make them live forever. You know, I've told my mom and some close friends of mine that, ibuprofen, Tylenol, Bayer. What happened to Bayer? Well, anyways, that stuff doesn't heal you. All that pill does per se is just it numbs that receptor vein that sends that that signal to your brain saying, oh, this side hurts or this side hurts or I have a headache. But that's all it does. It doesn't make you better. It makes you think you feel better, but it doesn't. Many people look to science and their doctors to save their physical bodies, just as they look into this Babylonian system of government by the people and of the people to bring them peace. But this world will have neither peace nor salvation through any other than Yahweh. And most people have brought it up to their own attention and others that, only the popes can interpret the Bible, only the preachers in your churches can interpret the Bible. But they go, and the preacher, knowing if they're part of the every Sunday congregation, might just tell them things they want to hear so they can keep coming back and leaving their money. But anyways, in December of 1982, issue of the U.S. News and World Report, an article was published entitled Doctor's Dilemma, Treat or Let Die. Part of the introductory headlines read, high technology tools of medicine that can keep people alive but offer little hope for recovery are creating hard ethical choices for doctors and patients as well as for federal health officials. Whatever doesn't make them any money, they're not going to put out. Did you know that it is a fact, and if you Google it, there's actually, as far as I know, there's actually already a case and I won't say one case because there might be others, but there's already a case that I read that they've already cured a guy with not cancer, with AIDS. But they're not gonna heal everybody from AIDS because then they won't make any money. So I'm only assuming that they're trying to figure out a pill or a drug per se that'll slow down the process, like for pregnancy or whatever. I'm not saying it's gonna come out, but if it does, then praise Yahweh for His knowledge. But uh, that's what I'm assuming they might do because uh, there's illnesses that they can heal. Like you yourself can cure your diabetes if you're diabetic. Oh yes, you can if you start eating the way you're supposed to, and like eat more veggies, eat more real food instead of always buying freaking McDonald's and Subway. Well, Subways it's not that bad, but McDonald's and Dairy Queen and Sonic and Stars, that's all. It's got MSG, got all kinds of crap. Okay, but you can reverse your diabetes. When I was still locked up, that I was 2 years ready to get out, that my mom went to go visit me, she had thinned up. And I think she or my sister told me that she was diabetic. And I looked at her and I was like, I wonder if she knows that she can reverse the diabetes. So I told her, but I said, Mom, the reason the doctors ain't going to tell you is because if you do reverse your diabetes, they know you can, then you're going to put them out of a job. That's why the doctor got mad at my mom, because she had thinned up. And they know diabetes can be reversed. But a lot of times you tell people, here's the sad part about it. You have all these experts in exercising, exercise training, physical training, who write these books, who have that stuff, but they're just trying to make money out of it. Man, you would have saved hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people who have diabetes, but you want to make money. I understand you do, but come on, man. Help people out. Help people out. All right. Almost $300 billion a year is spent in the U.S. on medical cures. The plain hard facts are that doctors cannot cure anyone. Doctors can only work along with the body's defenses or give drugs that hide the symptoms. There you go. Sadly, most doctors only treat the symptoms and never able to find the cause, giving false hope to be critically ill. Kind of like preachers, huh? Giving you false hopes. Life comes from Yahweh alone, and only Yahweh can make a life eternal. Through the false hope inspired by Satan, man will continue believing that sorceries, as John called it, will prolong their lives. The doctors admit there comes a time when you recognize that you can keep pumping blood and keep a body functioning, but it is not a life. And that is coming from the U.S. News and World Report, December 6, 1982. See, people, I see all these people on TV promoting shakes, malts, foods. The foods are great as long as it's got vegetables and stuff like that. You see, I think, and this is just me, and I'm trying to make a point, because I've eaten in Mexico, I've eaten food here in the U.S. in different restaurants, but to me, there's nothing better than home cooked food or Mexican food. But a lot of times, even in restaurants, it's all bing, microwavable. A lot of times, they don't cook your food in your Mexican restaurants. I remember going to one in Georgia. We used to have a drop yard over there in Augusta, in Grovetown, and that's all they do is they have that stuff in the refrigerator out of the boxes, and they put it through a burner or through a microwave, and your food is ready. But here in South Texas and in Mexico, where my grandmother lives, everything is home cooked. There ain't nothing better than that. And I'm not saying just Mexican food. I'm saying if you live at home and your wife or your husband cooks home cooked food, there ain't nothing better. Alrighty. The two Babylons connected through drogas, through drugs. This is from the U.S. News and World Report. After years of hesitation, Italy and the Roman Catholic Church finally are facing up to a problem long concealed behind a barrier of silence, lies, and corruption. The mafia. Once little more than a local protection racket centered on the island of Sicily, of Sicily, the mafia has become one of the world's leading drug entrepreneurs. Today, its activities are generating profits in the hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Its tentacles reach into virtually every corner of Italian life, and it has become one of the major sources of heroin entering into the United States. Don't get me wrong, people. Drugs are bad. And allow me to correct myself on another point that I made maybe in the videos about marijuana. It's not entirely evil if it's for the medical reasons, per se, according to what I saw recently. But marijuana does have that potency to block your, I guess, your memory sensors or whatever. Uh, it does. I mean, the overconsumption of it does, make you sick or whatever. But all in all, in its entirety, it's not entirely bad per se. Okay. It says in the U.S., the 25 active families of the mafia of La Cosa Nostra are estimated to gross up to $200 billion a year from the kinds of crime with it usually is associated: gambling, arson, loan sharking, and drug trafficking, and tens of millions more. Up to 60% of heroin reaching the U.S. is thought to be processed in mafia-run laboratories on the island Sicily. The value of this trade runs to about $6 billion annually. Most of this money generated in America returns to Italy to be laundered by corrupt bankers and invested by the mafioso in legitimate businesses, or in the legitimate business. Heroin, after being refined in Sicily, is removed by ship or air to the U.S. It is no coincidence that the New York Rome Palermo flight is known on Sicily as the Godfather. Sorcery means drugs and those who deal in drugs. Police on Sicily are said to have discovered 4 processing laboratories, each capable of producing 110 pounds of high-grade heroin a week, worth about $12 million on the New York streets. It is plain to see that when New York is destroyed, a major drug distribution area will be wiped out. Okay. So all in all, the worst drugs are the ones that have chemicals in it: meth, heroin, and whatever else drug users might use. I myself have only done marijuana, and that was back in 1997. But to make a point on this recent article, the one I just read about, this all in all in sorceries and drugs, I know a lot of people want to believe that, we can never put an end on drugs. We really, it's not that we can, and it's not that we can't. It's just that it's worth too much to the United States. It's a business. I think I brought it up in one of my recent videos that, supposedly we see on TV that they're burning a stash of marijuana, but they're not burning what they recently caught, because they use it in hospitals all the time for people who have epileptic seizures and whatever else that they've known has will bring not a cure, but will make that person feel better. So marijuana has curing points to it. I don't know the proper terminology, but properties, I guess. But all in all, this country can't allow drugs to stop coming into this country. It is a fact that that is how this country runs, or else we wouldn't have a customs port of entry. We wouldn't have, port of entry police posts in New York and at the airports and whatever else. So, I'm just saying, just from what I saw and read, and here, like I said, I think one time in one of my videos, people don't just come up with that kind of stuff. Say, oh, we're gonna do this. No, they have caught drug dealers in times past, and they use all this stuff to make their stories, and or a book writer can gather all the information from like newspapers and books that people have written on drugs, because there are books out there written by ex-drug dealers or ex-drug traffickers. So that is how we get a lot of the stuff in the movies. I really couldn't sit down and tell you exactly if it's right or if it's wrong, but what I know as far as my case, a lot of that stuff in the movies is true. And I really believe we do have corrupt policemen, corrupt governors, corrupt presidents, corrupt everybody. But that's just, my view on a lot of these things. So yeah, this country can't afford to put an end on drug trafficking because it makes them money. Okay, so anyways, hopefully here in a little while I'm gonna cover the numbering system, the number of men, and like I said, I'm gonna try and put it on this phone because the uh, the mic per se works better. I'm picking up my voice, and so to give you guys a heads up, I don't have them on here yet. I save a lot of my pictures and a lot of my info on my messenger, and I snapshot a lot of music so I can look up it. I listen to a lot of different music besides heavy metal, hard rock, norteño music. So, but these iPhones, man, to me, they're just way better than this kind of stuff. But anyways, so hope you all had a great morning. Hopefully, you guys will share this kind of information with your loved ones, friends, families, ex girlfriends, ex boyfriends. People who want to know about these prophecies. They're plain English written in there. Again, uh, as y'all have seen and hopefully have caught on, a lot of the answers are in the Bible. Like I mentioned to y'all about Ellen G. White saying about these 10 nations when there was actually, or rather, these 3 horns that were subdued. It's Babylonia, the Medo-Persians, and the Greeks, or whatever it was. I can't remember, but the answers are in the Bible, people. Like I stated, there is no mention of all those 10 countries in the Bible, so it's real easy for me to do away with that deception, as well as the ones from the late Mr. Armstrong. They're some kind of reformations and all this kind of stuff, but those are not the 7 hills on which Roman sits, and those are not the 7 heads of the dragon. Okay, again, people, do not be deceived because they said they were, ministers or self-proclaimed prophets. It's real easy to let people like that deceive you. You need to do your own research, and like I stated in here, I have 2 books, but those 2 books, you can see where it's separated. Those 2 books carry tons and tons of information as far as biblical history, research, and stuff that pertains to whatever we're talking about. Here are another 2 more books, and those 2 books are loaded with information. Okay, so I leave you for now, and I'll get to this video as soon as I can. If not, I will keep not putting out more as prophecies as well. Okay, you all have a great day. Cheerio.